Thank you. Let's start with where and when you were born. I think you're one of my youngest couples, so that's a
Yeah.
treat. Whoever wants to start, jump in.
All right. So my name's Atticus. I was born in Lancaster, Pennsylvania in 1989.
And what month and day, because I'm interested in your astrological sign.
Yeah. February 13th.
Is that uh, Aquarius?
Yes.
And do you feel like an Aquarian? They're future oriented, visionary, maybe not real overtly emotional.
Not really. In some ways, I guess, but I don't know my sign by heart, so I don't really know.
Okay.
I don't know.
And let's see. What about you?
My name is Sebastian. I was born November 25th, 1994 in Pawtucket, Rhode Island.
So you're a Sagittarian.
Yes.
Okay. Forward looking, ask deep questions, adventurous. Does that apply to you or not?
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay.
I would like it to apply to me.
And then could you say a word about your education and career paths, how those have evolved?
Yeah. So graduated from Slippery Rock University with a bachelor's in creative writing and minors in women's studies and communications, and then master's degree in gender studies from Florida Atlantic University, graduated in 2015, and then worked at two different LGBTQ nonprofits, one in Florida, one in Pennsylvania, for a number of years, and now I work at the Department of Health creating LGBTQ curriculum.
Got it. What did you do your master's thesis on? What was your research about?
So I did an internship rather than a thesis. So I did an internship with the director of transgender services at the nonprofit that I then worked for. And then she left and I was then the director of transgender services. So I got to help people do their name changes as part of my internship, and I started a transmasculine group at the organization.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what did you find? I'm really interested in our learned gender roles in terms of how they influence our behavior and our relationships. So what did you learn that trans men had to learn that wasn't part of their previous lives as women?
Well, there's a whole thesis there. I think there's so much. I often get jealous of like young boys, like my nephews and stuff, because they get the boyhood that I never got. I had to teach myself how to shave, and like little things that like people would point out to me. Like somebody said that they said, I'll never forget, he said, I wave gay. And I was like, I don't know what that means. But when I was transitioning, yeah, that they said I waved gaily. And I was like, how do you, and even like the way I took my shirt off. Like, so I used to take my shirt off by putting my arm in like this, and then I'd go over my head like that. But now all I do is I grab it like this and I pull over like that because I felt like that was a more masculine way to undress. So there's so many little things, that you don't realize.
I think something that I see in trans women is that they still are assertive and speak affirmatively. They don't use questioning inflection. Do you think, what about this? So there's a whole speech pattern that's different. Did you have to think about that consciously as well?
Yes, but I also felt like I was saying exactly what I used to say, but it was taken more seriously.
Yeah.
So I do feel like I didn't have to work as hard to get heard, especially because I pass as like a white cisgender straight man. So like I have all the privilege that comes with that. So yeah, I do feel like I'm taken seriously.
Yeah, what other privileges might come with that so people are aware of how sexism plays out in our culture?
I don't have to think about if I'm walking by myself at night or something, like I don't think about my safety anymore. The only time I ever have to think about my safety is like restrooms sometimes, but even then, it's not really a big thing anymore. Or traveling, if we want to travel somewhere, then sometimes I think, like internationally, I think about it. But other than that, like I don't worry about things like I used to. There's a lot of privilege that comes with it, especially when you compare our experiences.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So in your work now, what are you focused on? What's your thrust, and what are you trying to have happen?
Yeah, so I work for the AIDS Institute at the New York State Department of Health. So we do a lot of work, of course, around HIV prevention, treatment, cascade of care, etc. So I work in the education and training program. So I used to, when I was working at both of my nonprofits, I did a lot of trainings and put them together and like told my story and this is what Trans 101, and then I tailored it for all sorts of different stuff. And now I do it basically on a more professional scale. So we do stuff about, I wrote a training about sex and substance use. I wrote trainings about like SOGI 101, sexual orientation and gender identity 101 for health homes, which is a branch of our health department. Crystal meth, MSM and sex. That's a big one. I just did a Child Parent Security Act. Is this new training? It's this new legislation that came out from New York State to allow same-sex couples to adopt children, and there was this whole training that came out about it. So we put the training together to educate the people, the local birth registrars, so they knew how to fill out the paperwork in an LGBT inclusive manner. So that's what I do. So I create the trainings and I manage our contractors that we fund to do trainings.
But you yourself are heterosexual, right?
Well, I identify as queer.
But you have a female partner and you're male.
Right.
So why is that queer?
Well, because I identified as a lesbian when I was identified as female. So I came out as a lesbian first when I was 17. And then I was still attracted to women, but when I started taking testosterone, I felt like my attraction changed a little bit, and I started engaging in sex with cisgender men, but I was still romantically attracted to women. And then I met Sebastian. So I identify as queer because I just feel like there's not one identity, one sex, really, that I would settle with. Although it's still primarily women, but I recognize the fluidity of it. Yeah, we're feminine people.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm thinking of like Native Americans have the concept, some tribal people of Bardash, and they recognize that there's not just two sexes.
Yes. Yeah.
And that it's just part of tradition.
Yeah.
Okay, Sebastian, what about you? What's your career education path?
So I graduated high school and went straight into a year course for medical billing and coding, which then placed me. I did a short internship with my program to get some hands-on training, and in that internship they hired me. So I started working in medical offices as billing and coding, as well as front desk and office managing. And I did that for a very long time, for a couple of years, 7 years, I think. When we lived in Pennsylvania, I started working at a abortion clinic. Of course, abortion care was not the only thing that they provided. They provided trans health services, GYN care, medical marijuana, many services, laser hair. But our main goal was providing abortion care. Through them, I learned more of reproductive justice organizations, got very involved also in providing some training around being inclusive for trans people in abortion care. And now I'm currently working at the National Network of Abortion Funds, where I help with logistics and well, kind of a lot of things.
Your education.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. And after the medical billing and coding 1 year course, 2 years after that, I went back to school for my bachelor's in media communications. back then I wanted to work in fashion, and very quickly realized that was not what I wanted to do. Yeah.
And then what's your story in terms of making a transition?
Oh, well, we
have very different stories.
Very different stories, and I think sometimes I feel like my transition story in itself is sort of unique to other trans women, in the sense that I did not grow up in a very gendered environment. My mother is very very fluid, I think, in the way, I have pictures of her with like a leather tuxedo and tie on, and she never really saw clothing as having a gender or toys having a gender. And so I played with Barbies, and specifically Bratz. Bratz dolls were my favorite. I related with their big lips. I was like, yes, I
haven't seen them. I don't know those dolls.
They have very big eyes and very big lips. And so
Yeah.
I think I related feature-wise, and so I was allowed to do that, and I was allowed to play what I wanted to play with. And one of my favorite things growing up was dressing up as a witch, and I had a wig, and my mother would buy me the long wig, the long nails, the pointy hat, and I loved it. And she never really restricted that, nor did she ever make me feel like liking these things was wrong for my gender. But of course, society at some point intervened, and it really did. Then it's when I started realizing through school and interactions, that being labeled male at birth, I was expected to look a certain way, act a certain way, sort of things. But growing up, I was never what people consider or what people see as traditionally masculine. I sometimes, as like a teenager, was called girl, or was referred to with feminine pronouns, with female pronouns, while I was just out and about, just because I had slightly longer hair. So it's a very unique experience. I was always what people would consider feminine. I started wearing makeup in high school, all before I came out as a trans woman. I came out as gay in high school, and at that point I was wearing women's clothes, like a mix of women, what are labeled as women's clothes and men's clothing, a mix. I was doing my nails. I was doing my makeup at that point, and all taught to me by my mother, how to do makeup. She would do my nails, and there was never a question. She never had a, why are you doing this, or you shouldn't be wearing that. It was, she just happily went along, and we happily shared in these mutual interests. And so coming out as a trans woman really was kind of like a discovery just within myself. As I went through high school, I started noticing my discomfort with masculine pronouns, and I came out as genderqueer, gender fluid, and then I decided to. So at that point, we were living in Florida. I decided to leave Florida. After some time, I decided to leave Florida. I was working already, and moved back to Rhode Island, to my hometown, to kind of start fresh and refocus on myself, and really discover who I was without what I felt were external voices. And because at that point in my life, after high school, I had groups of people that were referring to me with she, her pronouns, groups of people that were referring me to me with he, him pronouns, and other groups of people that were referring me with they, them pronouns. So I had on a daily basis 3 different situations where people were using 3 different pronouns, sets of pronouns, and I needed a reset. And then Rhode Island without everyone else and starting fresh, she, her pronouns were the pronouns that have and continue to make me the most comfortable. So then I would say I came out at that point, but I didn't really. I just started using she, her pronouns, and everyone got the memo. And if they didn't, I would correct them. And it just kind of happened. And at that point, I already looked like this.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
What about how you changed in your feelings about the world because of hormone changes? Because I am assuming you took hormones, and I'm wondering what impact that has on our behavior.
Well, so I've taken hormones, but Sebastian has not.
Mm.
Yeah.
So every trans person handles their transition differently. And I've said this before in trainings and in conversations and stuff. Right now, hormones are not something I want to take, but I'm not saying I'm never going to take them. It's just currently in where I'm at, hormones are not something I'd like to start, but that can change a year from now or 6 months from now.
Or never.
And that's okay. I feel, and I think everyone feels, at least in the trans community, I may be speaking, let's say I feel, you don't have to abide or hold yourself to anybody else's expectations while transitioning.
Mm-hmm.
You do what you feel the most comfortable. And at this point, my comfort level is not using hormones, but I am still a trans woman. I am still a woman.
Yeah. What about you, Sebastian? Atticus, what did you notice in terms of when you started taking testosterone?
Well, the first thing you notice is the sex drive.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, people always say that, but it is. And it becomes so much more visual. Like, as a person who identified as female, it was like, you can see pretty people and pretty things, and it's like, yeah, that's, really nice. But when you start taking hormones, it was like, everything turns you on, it was
just interesting.
Really different.
Wow.
Yeah, it was much more visual in my my sexual appetite.
That is fascinating.
It really was. You're like, oh. But like before you see boobs and be like, oh, boobs. And then you see boobs and be like, oh, boobs.
Got it. What about aggression or anger or anything like that?
Some people do say that they experience those things. That wasn't really my case. I would say the biggest emotional change was the crying. So some people will say, I would be going through something where I'd be like, if I was still, or if I wasn't on hormones, I would be crying right now. I knew the feeling, so I still felt like I was in touch with my feelings, but tears just wouldn't come anymore. It just wasn't really happening. So it was much rarer for me to cry. But I was still in touch because I knew that I would be crying. So I knew what the feelings were. But yeah, that was the biggest. But I don't think I got any more aggressive or angry. I don't think. Yeah.
What about reaction to little babies and cute little pets or something?
Well, babies and pets are still the same. I have the same reaction, but the way people interact with me when I have those reactions is very different. So if I'm alone by myself in a store, and I see a cute baby in front of me in the line at the checkout, I don't say anything. If I was a female, when I identified as female and presented as female, I did. So I'd be like, oh, cute baby, whatever, and it'd be all good. But I've done that since, being seen and presenting as male, and people do not like it. They'll take their baby away. They'll look at you funny. It's creepy. You just cannot talk to babies as a man by yourself. But if I'm with Sebastian, or then it's more acceptable for me to say, oh, you have a really cute kid. So now if I'm by myself, you just don't talk to other people's babies.
Got it.
Yeah.
I wonder what that does to cis men's parenting, fathering, when they become...
I know. Mm-hmm. It's this inherent thing that we just don't trust people who present as male around babies and around women. It's wrong that we have such distrust in them, but that's how.
Well,
it's sad.
But it is wrong.
But
there is also, and I say
lots
this
of
personally,
yeah.
You know, there is a discomfort, especially with cis men.
Yes.
You know, in society in general.
Yeah.
You know, I personally, if I'm alone, I have a kind of a please don't talk to me.
Yeah.
If a cis man approaches, or what I see as a cis man, because it's are you going to harass me?
Yes.
Why are you approaching me? Like,
what's your ulterior
my
motive?
guard comes up because safety, little red flags come up. I'm alone, and maybe like, where's the nearest person that can see what this interaction's going to?
Yeah, the same goes with women. I just don't talk to people who present as women in public either, really, unless it's like a necessary interaction. You just don't.
You don't say hi, how are you to a stranger.
No. Mm-mm.
So
No.
Interesting. So that, you know, boys get raised not to share their feelings and not to express their vulnerability. And I wonder, I mean, that must influence so much in terms of our politics and how power is played out, that boys are trained not to be in touch with their vulnerable feelings.
Yeah.
It's profound when you think about it. So when I read that a third of teens today are LGBTQI, and that's new in a way. Is it new because they feel safe to talk about it? Or do you have any ideas what's going on that maybe a third of teens are thinking, questioning their gender orientation?
Yeah, I think that's a good reason to applaud the society that I think that we're creating, which is like people are feeling safer now to explore. Or before it was like there's only two options and the world is black and white and that's all there is. And I think that people have always felt that that wasn't enough or that that's not good enough for them. And now there's just so many more words to express all those different feelings. You know, it's like I didn't know transgender existed or was a thing. So if I would have known when I was younger, maybe I would have come out much younger. You know, so I think that it's a good thing that the society that we're creating is allowing for all these words and identities to exist.
Mm-hmm.
What advice would you give to, say, someone is 13 and thinking, gosh, maybe I'm trans, maybe I'm bi, maybe I'm queer. What is there advice that you would give to them in that search, that kind of self-discovery?
It's hard to say.
Oh, I would say listen to yourself.
Yeah.
Listen to you. Listen to your internal voice, your gut.
And nothing can be like undone. People seem so scared all the time about these like hormone blockers or hormones too soon or you know, you're going to do damage to your body. It's like if you're young and you feel like, you know, you're trans and you're identifying as a different sex, you can get on hormone blockers and all it does is prevent puberty. Like it's nothing that couldn't be undone. So it's not likely that you will feel different, but if you do, like you don't have to freak out. You can just stop the hormone blockers, and you would go through puberty as you normally would.
There's also this I don't know what to call it, maybe double standard when it comes to teenagers or young children coming out as trans.
Yes.
Because these same people that oppose children and teens embracing who they are and embracing their identities are the same people that will tell a 1-year-old that they have a girlfriend.
Yeah. Like,
and
that
they're
boyfriend? And they're like 5 years old.
And force these very heteronormative, cis-normative roles on children that aren't even speaking.
Yes.
Children that are that have just been birthed
Yeah.
that aren't doing anything for themselves, aren't speaking, that they're taken care of, and they're automatically imposing what they want this child to do and how they want this child to grow up. And when this child actually has a voice and this person,
Yeah.
this young person actually is old enough to express who they are, they're shutting that down.
Yeah.
And it's very frustrating to see an adult be okay with almost sexualizing a baby,
Mhm.
assuming that they have a girlfriend or a boyfriend, or, oh, are you in love? Oh, they're going to grow up and
they're going to be a heartbreaker.
They're going to be a heartbreaker, and all these very dumb t-shirts.
Yeah.
And yet turn around and tell a child that's actually fully expressing who they are that they're wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe Daddy's Little Girl, that's another one.
Yes. Little Man, I hate those too.
I don't know if you've heard of this, but I found it really interesting. The University of Virginia School of Perceptual Studies are pediatricians mostly, and they've been studying kids who remember their past lives. And it's really interesting because a lot of the kids who were gender questioning, not comfortable with their gender assigned at birth, had memories of previous lives where they were the gender that felt right for them. And I thought that was really interesting. I wonder if you ever had that feeling of this is, well, I'm sure you had that feeling that this is wrong. There was a mistake here. I have the wrong body. I'm not used to it.
I've heard of the children like that who have remembered that, so I find that really interesting.
Yeah.
But as far as the feeling like not right, there's this term that I really like that I heard not really that long ago, maybe a few years ago, called gender euphoria. And we both, I think, really like that term because there's gender dysphoria, which we know about, right? Which is like just not feeling right in your body, which I think, I didn't really feel right, but I didn't hate my body either. Like, it was like, I didn't hate it. It got, I was a runner. I appreciated my body for what it could do. Like, I didn't hate being female. But it was like when I was called the right pronouns, the male pronouns, masculine pronouns, it was like, it just was right. It was just right. And it was like just this feeling of like relief and like, this is it. This is what I need. So it wasn't that I hated my old body, and I never did, and I don't regret it. And, it's just, this one's just so much better.
I think I would say, and maybe you would agree with this, I'm not sure, is we're taking the blame off of our body. Our bodies aren't wrong. My body's not wrong. I love my body. I am pleasantly plump and very happy about it. And it's more of a societal issue. The blame is on society placing these labels on us before we were able to really express what labels or what way we wanted to identify. Because our bodies never had a problem.
Yeah.
Our bodies very easily were molded and adapted to what we felt comfortable.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of work for I think both of us to undo and to enforce how we identified onto society.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot of work for society to see you the way you want.
I'm thinking of, there used to be a big controversy, I don't know how it's been resolved, about babies who have ambivalent penis, clitoris, whatever, and they used to make a decision for the baby. Right. I guess usually make them girls. I don't know. So I'm wondering how that's been resolved in terms of giving, at what age do they give the kids a choice?
Yeah, so there's intersex advocates who say don't take the choice away from them. So doctors should never decide this. It's like, let the child grow up however they want. Don't gender them, let them pick whatever they want to wear and all that stuff. And then when they reach an age where they can consent and they feel, like it's however they want, then they can have a surgery if they want to. Mm-hmm. But then that's up to them. Because you just don't know what you're dealing with internally. You don't know what their chromosomes are. You don't know what their hormone balances are that young. Like, you just don't know.
Have you ever heard of a specific case of a child who decided, who was able to decide?
No.
I have not.
That would be interesting to know
Mhm.
what their process was.
Yeah.
How did you two meet? How did you two decide to live happily ever after?
We met we were both, I was working at the first nonprofit at SunServe in Florida, and I was asked to be part of a panel for my alma mater, Florida Atlantic University, on LGBTQ people in medicine. And so I was there, we were having like a pre-meeting. And then like half an hour late, this woman walks in, and I had never met her before, never met. And she walks in like it's August in Florida, and she's wearing a turtleneck and thigh-high black boots, and she has a purse on, and she walks into this room like she owns it, and she walked in like the meeting should have started when I arrived, But then you can say what?
The truth is, I was nervous.
Were you going to be on the panel?
Yes, so we were both going to be
Yes.
panelists.
Yeah, we were invited by a mutual person that we knew that was in that program at the time. So that was actually at the time my first panel that I was going to be on, and I was very nervous, but I was just slightly late.
Slightly late.
And I did see in my head I thought I was walking in apologetically. I guess it was interpreted I was walking in not apologizing, but okay. And we had this meeting, and the person leading it, we were sitting not close to each other, but the person that was leading this meeting was not great at leading this meeting.
Yeah, they were like a doctor, and so they were coming across like really biologically, like there's men and women, and tell me how you became a man.
Well, it was very uncomfortable. They were speaking to an audience of LGBTQIA plus experts.
Yeah.
You brought us here to educate, and this person was confirming why they needed this panel.
Yeah.
And at one point, they pointed at me and asked basically what box. They were going around kind of ticking boxes and asked what box I was in. And they then something else came up that they said that was very wrong. And Atticus spoke up and stopped it and gave a very long explanation on why that was inappropriate or why that was not the way that they should have said it or whatever. And that's when I noticed Atticus. And I said, who is that man with that lovely beard that's shutting this very inappropriate moment down? I need to know who he is.
Yeah. So then afterwards, Sebastian asked if we all wanted to go get coffee, all the panelists.
I was too embarrassed to actually ask him.
Clever.
Yeah. It's like, do you all want to go get coffee? So we went and had coffee at the Starbucks on campus.
Which, if I would have known what I was signing up for, maybe I wouldn't have asked everyone for coffee. Like Atticus said, it was August in Florida. I don't know why I decided to wear a turtleneck, tight pants, and thigh-high boots, but I did, and a very heavy purse.
Yeah.
And nobody explained to me that at this campus we were going to park, and that this coffee place we were going to was going to be like 10 miles away from us. It was a hike.
It wasn't that far.
Yes, well, with a person in
If you have a
stilettos,
turtleneck on, it does.
Yeah.
outside in the middle of the day it was a trek just for me to get coffee with him.
Yeah. So we all went up to coffee, and then we became friends on Facebook.
Yes.
And then we messaged each other like on Facebook and stuff, and then we hung out and
Yeah, we just started hanging out. I don't think either of us really considered it dates or knew really what we were doing. We just hung out.
We were just hanging out because I had already started looking for a job out of state. Like I knew that I didn't want to be in Florida forever because I'm from Pennsylvania and I wanted to go back where the weather was not Florida weather. Like I didn't want to be there, and my job paid me, CBOs, it just paid me shit. Like it was terrible, and I just wanted a different. So I was already looking, so I didn't think that we were really going to go anywhere.
But at that same time, I was trying to move out of Florida as well. I had tried to move to California, tried to get work in California. And that was the time where I wanted to get away from all of these external voices and different pockets of people using different genders. And around that time, I decided to move back to my hometown in Rhode Island.
Yeah. So then I actually got a job in at a university in Massachusetts, and then she moved to Rhode Island just like 2 months later.
Mm-hmm.
So then we connected again when we were both in New England,
Mm-hmm.
and we got together then. And then I got a different job,
Yes,
and then
in
I moved to Pennsylvania, and she stayed in Rhode Island, and we didn't really think it was going to go there.
We had a lapse in communication. We kind of fell out of loop with each other between him moving and me trying to establish myself in Rhode Island again, or figuring out what I wanted to do. Really career-wise at that point, we fell out of touch, really.
Yeah, and then it was 2 months after I had been in Pennsylvania for about 2 months. I got my own apartment, and then I said, well, we connected again, and I said, why don't you come visit? And then she visited, and it was basically like she never laughed after that.
Before then, you'd been just platonic friends.
No, we were romantic, but
yes,
but we weren't serious.
Mm-hmm.
So we
we were involved romantically, but not committed to each other.
Yeah.
And then how did you get from Pennsylvania to New York?
Well, I moved in with him in Pennsylvania when we kind of put our guard down and let each other in.
How long ago was that?
That was August of 2017. So and then we got engaged in December 2017, and then we bought a house in Pennsylvania, and then 8 months later, I got a job for New York, for the New York State Department of Health. So we bought this house, and then that same year sold that house, and then moved to New York. And then she got this job at NNAF when I was figuring out, like, am I going to accept this job offer or not? Then she got the job with NNAF, which is all remote.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really lucky that she could stay remote.
Yep.
So, and that was in 2019 we moved to New York.
Yep.
And then when did you decide, okay, we're going to make a lifetime commitment. Let's do it. Let's get married.
That would have been the fall of 2017. So we met in Florida, didn't really know if it was going to go anywhere. Then it was New England, and we were still like, I was there and then moved again so fast, and she was establishing herself, and we were connecting some, but it was really like missed communication, I think.
Yes, it was.
So,
and I think we were both a little nervous very nervous to let someone in. I mean, on my end, my entire life I said I was never going to get married. I didn't want to get married. I basically didn't want a partner. I wanted to be on my own,
because you're
living my own life. I saw my mother do it, and I thought it was fabulous. And she just had the freedom, and I loved it. And I thought that was what I wanted. And Atticus did want to get married, but we were, like he said, there was always a miscommunication between us.
Yeah, and I struggled too with some internalized homophobia, I think, when it came to her, and transphobia, because it was like I was really attracted to her, but I was nervous about what people were going to say. And even though I'm an intellectual and I knew that she wasn't a guy, obviously, but I still had to process that emotionally, that like, this is a woman no matter what, like, her body is, and I'm a guy no matter how we engage with each other romantically and sexually.
Or what society expects.
And what society expects. So it took me time to like I was very guarded, I was like, this is on the DL, like this isn't a thing, But then it was when I moved to Pennsylvania and I said, why don't you come over? That night was really different. That was the night we both simultaneously let our guard down, I think, and were like, and got vulnerable with each other for like the first time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we had known each other for a year at that point, but it was the first time we actually got to know each other.
And regardless of how different our transition stories are, or our upbringing, we are two trans people navigating the same very cis and heteronormative world.
Mhm.
And that connects us on a really deep level. Like, we both understand how difficult it is to navigate the world and life as trans people. So that also lends itself to a really deep connection and almost like a sigh. It feels so relieving to know that your partner understands.
Yeah.
Your struggles.
Yeah. You don't have to explain things.
Yeah.
At this point, you both present as cis. And so does that make things easier? People just assume, okay, you're a woman, you're a man, you're married.
Well, so when we first got together, I felt like every time we went in public, people stared at her. Like
Which I told him
happens.
it's true.
Yeah.
And it
And
happens a lot.
And the first time we went to Philly to have dinner with a friend, and someone said, "Is that a man?" And like followed us and called her out on the street. And that was really upsetting, more to me than to her, because that had happened to her before, but it had never happened to me.
How tall are you, Sebastian?
5'11".
Oh, so that makes it more complicated.
Yeah, and I'm only 5'5", 5'6".
5'11" with stilettos on. Well, 5'11" without stilettos, but I wear stilettos.
Yeah.
Good for
But
you.
she's very tall. But
So
yeah, and
that's
I
why.
was just like flabbergasted, because like anytime I've seen Sebastian, I see her as a woman, like she is a woman.
Yeah, I do
So
too.
like for other people to like say that, I was just like, what are they seeing? And so that was really upsetting. Yeah.
It was just probably the height thing.
Yeah.
But at this point, and like I told him very early on, it made him very uncomfortable. I know that people stare. I don't notice it, nor do I really care, if I'm honest. And my response to them yelling at me and following me in Philly was to give them the finger. Because I was hungry and wanted to get to the restaurant that we were eating at. Yeah, I'm very grateful to my mother when it comes to those situations, because my mom has a lot of confidence. And I grew up around a woman that was very confident no matter what. People would criticize her for what she was wearing, why she was dyeing her hair, what she was doing with her makeup or her nails, and she did not care. She did it anyway. And the more people criticized, the more she did it.
All right.
And finally, after many years of being very self-conscious in my teens, I kind of blossomed into a mini version of my mother, and I'm very happy about that.
Were your dad wasn't in the picture?
Very
minimally.
Very in and out.
Yeah.
Kind of whenever he wanted to be. So.
And do you have siblings?
The answer to that is yes. One, very young sibling. My father had another child.
Just like a year or two ago.
Yeah.
We haven't met her.
No.
Why did you laugh? Because it was a surprise.
It's almost like not having a sibling on my end.
Oh yeah.
I grew up my entire life as a only child, and I never knew anything else. Neither of my parents, my mother never had other children, and it's only just maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, my father had another child, and it's still, I forget sometimes.
Yeah, if you haven't met the baby.
Yeah, and there's such a huge age gap.
Yeah.
That
Atticus, do you have siblings?
Yeah, I have 3. I have an older sister, an older brother, and a younger sister. And there's only 4.5 years between the oldest and the youngest. So it was like, yeah. So my mom had my sister, and then 6 months later got pregnant with my brother. And then 2 years later, I came. And then another 6 months later, my mom got pregnant with my little sister. So, yeah.
She must have been so busy. I hope she didn't have to work outside the home at the same time.
No, well, I don't think she did then. No, she does now, but yeah. So she was basically pregnant for 4 straight years. But she said that's the way she wanted it. She did it on purpose. So.
Oh, wow. She wanted to get it over with.
Yeah, she did. She wanted us really close. And actually, she didn't want the 2-year gap between my brother and me. She didn't want that big gap. Like, she wanted it less. So, but yeah, some life intervened for him. But yeah.
What do you two think about babies in your life, having kids?
Eventually, yes. So we're on like a 5-year plan right now. So we've been married for a little over 2, and we've bought this beautiful house in New York, which we just love. We moved in
September of last year.
Yeah, a little less than 6 months ago. And we've got house plans. And in this economy, we can't have both. We don't have the money to both fix the house and have a baby. So we've got big plans to fix the house and fix the basement, because we both work remote now because of the pandemic. So we want to move my office into a finished basement, which we want to do, and then that will open up my current office for a baby room. So
unfortunately for us, we can't just have a child whenever we kind of feel like it. I think if that were the case, we would already have a baby, but our baby has to be planned with a lot of detail and a lot of other organizations or people involved, and probably a lot of paperwork.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about adoption. We talked a lot. I had a hysterectomy, and we talked a lot before that about, do I freeze my eggs? Do I really want to carry? Is that something I want to go through? Because it would be so nice. We have the capacity to have biological children together, and we think that would be wonderful. But like the medical process to do that is not something we think we want to go through.
In vitro fertilization.
Right. And it would have to be a surrogate, so there's a lot of legality around that kind of stuff, and it's a lot of money.
Yeah, a lot of money.
A lot about adoption, fostering, and bio babies. So I think we're gonna probably do the private adoption, but you're talking tens of thousands of dollars. So
a little bit.
We gotta save for it. Yeah.
Do you have a puppy in the meantime?
Yes, we have 2 puppies and a cat.
Yep, and fish.
Yeah.
And a lot of plants.
Yes. So our puppies are definitely our babies for now.
How do you organize family work, cooking, cleaning, whatever? How do you organize it?
So I'm going to start this by saying I took 2 years of culinary classes in high school. There was an elective. I took 2 years. Got out of that elective very quickly because I realized I hated it. I hate restaurant and all the cooking.
So, I love her, but she cannot cook.
After 2 years? Wow.
Did nothing. And when we first moved in together, I tried very hard, for whatever reason in my head, to, probably because, I don't know, society usually expects the feminine person to be like the cook and homemaker and wear 16 different hats at once. I tried to be, and I would get home earlier, always. So I would try and make dinner and all of that before Atticus would come home. And we quickly realized that I was absolutely miserable.
Oh.
And I hated making these dinners, and I couldn't follow a recipe to save my life.
Yeah. So in some ways we're just like, we even make fun of ourselves because we are very gendered in our roles at home, which also is revolutionary sort of in itself, because I'm the guy who was born female, and she's the woman born labeled male at birth. So, but yet, like, she does the cleaning, she does the laundry,
grocery shopping,
but I do all the cooking. What else do I do? She does the most. I do all the cooking. And, I take out the trash. And I do the kitty litter. She basically does everything else. And I do the finances.
Yes. I do have to say, though, in your defense, I am very particular, and I think in the way...
Yeah, we tried actually cleaning together in the beginning, and she was just like, you clean terribly. Like, she grew up, like, she just likes it a certain way. I'm like, okay. And I actually kick her out of the kitchen when I cook, because I don't like her in there with me.
Atticus is very structured at cooking and following the recipe, and I just want to grab stuff and throw it in and see what happens.
Yeah, and it stresses me.
It doesn't work.
So I'm actually a pretty good cook. So
very good.
And the money, finances, you probably talk about together, but Atticus, you do the paperwork stuff.
Yeah.
He is very good at math and all of that. And so, yes, we talk about it together, but I let him take the reins on like the organization around the money and the calculation.
Yeah, so I do a budget, and I've got an Excel spreadsheet, and we figure out what we're spending each month and what we want to save. But then together, all the big decisions are together, and we trust each other. Like, she would never buy something like without talking to me about like big stuff without talking
Neither of
first.
us would.
Yeah, we just don't do that.
No. And each month, let's say, we like working on our house a lot. We really like updating it, and we personalize our house a lot. And so each month we both decide what we want done. Yeah. So whether that's wallpapering, painting, ripping out something and redoing it, we kind of map out, okay, what do we want to prioritize this month? And it's never just him, and it's never just me. It's a mutual decision.
What do we want to prioritize? But also, to even have these conversations, we recognize how privileged we are to even have them.
Have the money to do that.
Yes, because we both were working for like nonprofits, or you were working at the medical offices, and we just were not making much money at all. And we were getting into some debt and stuff. And then like I got this job in New York, and like my salary almost doubled. And Sebastian's doubled almost. So we just we are two successful stealth passing like trans people.
I don't know if I'd call myself stealth.
No, not really. We're not really stealth, but
what's stealth?
Stealth is if you're trans and nobody knows it. Like you just live in the world without telling people that you're trans.
How do you spell
open.
How do you spell it?
STEALTH.
Oh, that's a new one for me.
Yeah. So, we are both really privileged to be, we feel like being successful and happy as trans people is revolutionary. Mm-hmm. So we feel very happy to be where we are.
I'm thinking of media images, like Julie Andrews did a movie where she was a trans.
Dysphoria.
Yeah.
So there is some kind of tradition and culture of people cross-dressing, but being the other gender than they were born. It's not like a new idea.
No, but I was actually thinking about that today because I remembered some Halloween party where two of my uncles dressed up as women for this Halloween party.
Yeah. And
I was thinking about that, and here we hear about so many trans women, so many specifically Black trans women that are murdered each year and the harassment that as trans people we have to endure. But but it's acceptable for cis, usually hetero people to cross-dress and to play it and to play with this, and that's okay. But we are identifying and presenting ourselves and telling people who we are, and we're at risk of being murdered or assaulted or harassed.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's like people dressing up on Halloween as Asian Indians or Native Americans or something. Yeah, it kind of trivializes it. So what do you have conflicts over? Because every couple has some issues that they have to rub the sandpaper off their differences. What are those?
I think early on especially, and it's still something that they're working on, but let me know if, I think early on it was, we talked a lot about privilege and white privilege and our different experiences. I am a Latina, and I'm first generation born here in the U.S. My mother came from Colombia. we had very different experiences growing up. And I mean, my mother and I were sometimes harassed for speaking Spanish in public. And, you know, so at the beginning we had very intense conversations around race and privilege. Yeah.
Yeah.
And how we navigate family is very, very different.
Yeah. So in the beginning, it was like where I felt like I was pretty woke for a white person. And then you realize that you're not, you know, and it kind of hurts your ego a little bit too, to be like, what do you mean I'm not? You know, so you have to like put your ego aside and like, you know, recognize that you don't know everything, you know, because you just don't. And then, but now I think we navigate family differently and we navigate boundaries differently. So if Sebastian has a conflict, she's very good at like self-preservation. Like she sets these boundaries and that's what it is. And she's good at, if you cross my boundaries, then I'm done with you. And that's how it is. And I don't do that. I have put myself around toxic people for the sake of unity or to keep the peace. You know, so people will hurt me and I'll be like, well, I don't like that or I don't like them, but that's family, you know, or whatever. And we've had a lot of conversations about like, Sebastian will be like, why do you let these people in your life? And it's like, I just feel like if I had the relationship that Sebastian had with like boundaries and stuff, then I wouldn't talk to anybody. I wouldn't talk to my family. I wouldn't talk to my parents. I wouldn't talk to my siblings. But now like, now I have a great relationship with my parents and I have a great relationship with my siblings. Not everybody in my family, but like my immediate family is so good. And if I hadn't been open to letting them grow, then I would have been missing out. So like, to me, there's a balance that we have to strike between like me recognizing that like, I can't let everybody in, you know, because it's for my own mental health and protect myself. And you don't have to be around people who hurt you. And it's a balance of like forgiveness and like letting people grow just by seeing us together.
Mm-hmm. We have both learned from each other.
Yes.
Atticus will always be much more forgiving than I am, and I will always be a lot more set with my boundaries than he is. But we definitely have learned from each other. Him in setting boundaries and being a bit more firm, and me in putting them down slightly to at least I don't know, allow a conversation or something.
Yeah.
Did they come to your wedding? Did you do a wedding?
Yeah, we actually got married at my parents' house in their backyard. So, you know, they live in Lancaster and they have this really nice backyard and, you know, like wooded and it's on a hill. And that was really wonderful to me because my relationship has not always been so wonderful with them. And for them to like, you know, open their home and let us get married there, it meant a lot, I think, to both of us. So that was really nice. But we chose to only have immediate family at the wedding. So instead of like cherry picking certain extended family members, we said 1 for money and 2 because we don't want to create a thing. Just anybody that's not immediate family is not invited.
Except 2 people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you wear, Sebastian? To the
I
wedding?
wore. My mom lives in Florida still, so unfortunately I did my dress shopping via FaceTime with her. But I had a long sleeve beaded white gown, and it
had like these lace sleeves.
Yes, lace sleeves and kind of like a lace collared area. It was very long and white and completely different than I ever would have pictured for myself. I thought it was going to be very simple and long and, well, kind of just
elegant.
No beads, very simple. And then I fell in love with the most beaded and lacy and like ball gowny looking dress.
But then it was covered in mud by the end of the night.
Oh, yeah, and I didn't care about that though. But it was outside and, you know, it was a little wet, and both my wedding shoes and my wedding dress went from white to brown. And I just think it's really sweet to see. I decided not to like take
Wash
a stain
it, yeah.
remover or anything to it because I thought it was just very sweet. That was a fun memory of us just just having fun outside in our
Yeah.
wedding, dancing and walking around.
Yeah, we had a campfire at our wedding. So.
Yeah.
Nate, can you dance in stilettos?
By that time of the night, I was I don't dance.
Yeah.
But my family dragged me out to dance, and I was in flats by that point. Because of the mud, my heels were just digging into everything. So I decided to wear, I think, sandals. Or I was barefoot, something.
So now what are issues? None? I mean, everything is totally harmonious.
Oh no, we laugh because I think one of our friends at one point, what did he say?
We
Like,
were
do
out
you
with
guys
a friend.
fight?
He goes, "Do you guys ever fight?" And we're like, "Oh no."
Yes,
Of course we
we
fight.
fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we are very similar in a lot of ways, and we agree and see things and agree very easily on things, but we are at the same time very different people, and we read situations in different ways.
Yeah, we miscommunicate sometimes,
Yeah.
for sure. And like we're trying to do stuff to our house. Like right now we want to give our kitchen a facelift. So we're constantly like negotiating cabinet pulls and kitchen tile backsplashes. Like we just miscommunicated on backsplashes.
Yes.
So she was like trying to, you can tell.
Well, I think the difference with us is, and Atticus said this at some point this week, is I have an easier time seeing the end vision. I can kind of picture things in my head of what it's going to look like, and Atticus has a hard time doing that. Yeah. So I had a picture in my head of what our backsplash was going to look like, and I explained it to him, and he did not get it, understand it, nor see it, and it was almost a week-long thing of both of us being not on the same page, and we were spending almost like an hour at this tile store with his parents and talking about it, and then my initial suggestion on how to do the tile came up, and Atticus was like, "Oh, that sounds fabulous." And I stood there next to his parents. I was like, "I said this a week ago. A week ago. Why are we here?"
Yeah, I think some of the biggest things that we have trouble with now is that she's very fast at making decisions, and we make decisions differently. And I am very slow. And I want everybody's opinion, and I want the internet's opinion, and I want to read articles and look at images and see how other people do it and watch videos on how it's done. And she's just like, if I like it, I like it.
I think he likes to do the research and seeing how people do it, and I like coming up with something that might just be our way of doing it.
Yeah. So that we miscommunicate there, and there was something else that I was going to say.
What? I'm always attuned to everything that's happening.
No, I don't listen. That's what I was going to say. is that we fight sometimes because she'll tell me, the way that she wants stuff or whatever, and I either forget or I just like don't listen well. Probably both. But like, so we definitely, that was part of that was the tile thing, is that she had told me and I don't remember her telling me. And so, yeah, we fight about that, about listening.
What about disciplining the pets? I mean, because they're like your kids.
That's nasty.
What?
You discipline. I don't.
Oh, I do discipline. But I think I end up disciplining more because I'm always very hyper aware of what's happening. We could be sitting on the couch, watching a movie with the volume full blast, and I can hear the creak happening upstairs. Or I hear the dog very lightly chewing on something in the upstairs guest bedroom, and I'm like, oh, something's happening. What's happening? Who's chewing on that? What are they doing? Are they going to choke? Do I need to stop them? Is it my shoe? And Atticus, as I've gone through all of that in my head, Atticus still hasn't heard anything.
I'm just like, she goes, "Do you hear that noise?" I said, "No."
What noise?
So she ends up doing the disciplining because she's just like so much more aware of what's going on, and I'm just like watching a show, like I'm not really paying attention. So, we recognize already, like when we have kids, I feel like she's going to be the disciplinarian and I'm going to be the fun one, which is not okay though. Like we see that stereotype in like heteronormative marriages all the time. And we don't like it. Like, I want to be better at like disciplining and, being firm, but I find it very difficult. I don't know why, but I do.
And I don't always want to be so hyper aware of absolutely everything that's happening. And I want to be a little more fun.
Yeah.
Not always so worried on, I don't know, what they might choke on.
So it sounds like you're learning from each other, maybe at different poles. You're both moving towards the middle in terms of,
Mm-hmm.
which is
We
what.
recognize that we're not at the middle yet, and I think that's a good step.
Yeah.
Too.
What do you do for fun? Because Masters and Johnson said pair bonding is based on the shared memory of good times. So what are your good times?
I think mutual good times, both of us really enjoy museums, old buildings, tours,
estate sales,
hiking. We both share a love for old, antique, Victorian, Edwardian homes and properties, estates, and that sort of thing. History we both enjoy a lot.
One of my recent good memories was she got me a magnet for fishing. Have you heard about that? So it's literally just a big magnet attached to a rope, and you throw it like in creeks and stuff, and like people will find all sorts of weird stuff that's metal, and you just pull it up. And so we went to a creek just down the road, and we threw it in, and we were fishing. And then Sebastian, she got it for me for Christmas, but she was throwing it, and she actually caught a railroad spike. And it was just like so exciting.
How fun!
So then I soaked it in vinegar, and we cleaned it, and I don't know, I just thought that was like really fun.
And I think we've gotten a lot more open with exploring new things. Atticus doesn't like shopping and doesn't like going to stores or any of that, but I love it. But slowly he's come with me to estate sales or houses that are doing garage sales, and we've found that
that's a middle ground.
That's a middle ground. It's not a store, but it's still a sale, and we both get to see a house that we haven't seen before. We kind of see what people have done and how they've decorated, and we've also get to see, antiques or stuff that might be for sale. And I've never, really done much outdoorsy things. And now we can go fishing, and I really enjoy fishing.
We went ice fishing for my birthday. That was really fun.
Yes, and I really enjoyed that.
Ice fishing?
Yeah.
You make a hole in the ice?
Yep.
Did you get fish?
Yeah, I got a perch and I got 3 walleye. So it was really fun.
It was and it was beautiful being out on the ice, and you just see like the hills around. It was beautiful.
So she got to be there for the view, and I got to be there for the fish. So it was like perfect.
But it was also exciting to see it. I think we've both learned to enjoy different things and to explore different things that we've enjoyed on our own, and now we're kind of doing. We both really like hiking.
Yeah, okay. Waterfalls. Yeah.
People often pick the familiar or the opposite of their parents' relationship. So I'm wondering how your relationship is different, or like Sebastian, yours is different because you weren't used to an ongoing partnership.
Oh. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, my parents are still together, and they've been together since 1983. So it's been like I've always admired their relationship, and I think it's really nice. Like I didn't see a lot of affection from them, but they were clearly really good partners. Like they built the house that they live in together. So like they built it in 1990. So I was a year old, and they built their house like literally just them, mom and dad together, like doing all the stuff. And like they constantly are doing things like that together. Like they just do everything together. And I really like that. And I think that like for me, like when it comes to the relationship I have, like I don't want divorce to be an option. Like I don't want that to be something that we consider, and so we've struggled with that because to Sebastian, divorce is always an option. She's like,
so this is where I was going to say on my end, I always admired that my mother left, and that she said, no, this is not what a healthy relationship is to me. This is not what I want for my life. I want more from a partner, and you're not providing it. And so she left. And I thought that was amazing and brave to go from being in a partnership to being a single mother. And I always admired that. And we've had talks about this because I don't fear divorce. I don't say never, because I told him on my end, I'm able to be in a healthy marriage, and I was able to say yes to marriage because I know that divorce and separation and all of that is an option.
But in some ways that comforts me, because it means that, like, she's with me because she wants to be, not because she doesn't ever want to get divorced, you know?
That's the thing. I see it. I'm not scared of divorce because I know I'm going to do everything. If someday we're having, going through a difficult time, I'm saying that I will put the work in to try and iron out whatever issues we have. And I feel comfortable doing that because I know that if we cannot, or if this is at some point ever turns into a relationship that's toxic for me and my mental health, there is always the option to end.
So it's not compulsive. You take away the compulsion.
Yeah, and we've talked about that before too. Like, what are our boundaries? What are things we would or would not accept in our marriage? And we've said, like, if you're bad to me, if you make me feel bad, like, that's something that we wouldn't accept. But, like, like, if one of us for some reason were to cheat on the other, which I hope never happens, but if that does, that's not an automatic grounds for divorce. It's an automatic grounds for we need counseling. There's a reason that this happened. Like, so we've talked about that too. Like, what are our hard no's and what are things we're willing to work on?
Yeah.
What were the other hard no's?
Oh,
physical.
Oh yeah, physical abuse.
Abuse of any kind.
Oh, I said if you ever like hurt my nieces or nephews or like made them feel bad.
Yes, any like verbal abuse to one of the kids,
to people we love,
or to like my mother.
Yeah.
Do some people get confused because Sebastian implies maleness to me? That's kind of a male first name. Do you ever think?
Well, yeah, I get a lot of questions on my name whenever I do talks and stuff, and at one place that we went to that was a group for trans people, a support group for trans people. There were a lot of unsolicited and unrequested advice on how to feminize my name, one of which was add an accent as if it were French. I'm clearly not French. I'm Hispanic and I don't need to be European.
Sebastian.
Yeah. And I've always loved my name. I can't explain it. I've always loved my name. I still really love my name. My mom actually just sent me a keychain with my name on it. I've just always loved my name. And I've decided to take the name and make it a gender neutral name.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And we've actually had conversations about our kid's future name or a child's future name, and how we purposely want to strive for something that's gender neutral for them, because we don't know what they are going or who they're going to grow up to be. So we want to try to provide them with a name as best as we can that they might fall in love with. But if they don't, they can change it.
Chris or Brooke or
Taylor.
Yeah.
Anything else that you would advise after being married to a young couple that's thinking about getting married? Anything you would tell them, make sure you do this and don't do this. This is what we've learned.
I want to say, don't spend a lot of money on the wedding. Because save it and use it on other fun stuff. We took our honeymoon in Prague and it was amazing. So
And we didn't have a lot of money, so what we did actually for our wedding was we, instead of requesting gifts, because we already lived together, we just said, just give us money, and we put it directly toward a down payment for a house. And that's the
Brilliant.
only reason we were able to afford a house, is because we asked for money for a wedding gift. So I would say, don't be afraid to ask for money, because that's how we got our first house.
I think the average wedding is like 20,000 or 25,000 or something. And
Yeah.
hello, use that for a house or a trip.
Including our honeymoon, we spent like 8,000.
Wow.
So yeah.
And I would say have the hard conversations.
Yeah.
Talk about divorce. Talk about
your boundaries.
Talk about boundaries. Talk about family.
Yeah.
And if you, like us, are interracial couple, with, talk about race and privilege and unpack all of that, because we're still unpacking all of that. There are still moments where there are triggers for us or for me of things that are uncomfortable, and you should be comfortable enough to say to your partner, that doesn't feel good to me. We need to talk about, like, maybe why you phrased it that way, or how, or where do you learn to say things in that manner. Yeah.
There are lots of things to learn as a couple is too. It's like, alone time, like that was something we struggled with in the beginning. It's like, I like time by myself, but she doesn't want me to have time by myself. There's lots of things like, what does angry look like to you? And that was another thing, was when we fought at the beginning, it was like, I felt like she wanted me to be yelling, and I felt like I wanted to use the advice I got in therapy, for fighting. And then it seemed too much like...
Or there were moments where I was expressing something that I was uncomfortable with or I didn't like, and he thought I was extremely mad. Where in my head, I wasn't. I just was expressing that I didn't like this certain thing, but
but to me, any emotion that's not happy must be angry. And it was like,
we were reading our and his sometimes approach of coming at from a place of what he's learned through therapy.
I'm feeling because, and I would
was to me at the beginning, because I had not had that sort of learning. I hadn't had that sort of experience. Was coming across like,
textbook.
Why are you trying to analyze me, or what can we just have like organic feeling? But now we both understand a lot more where we're coming from.
What's an example of white privilege that kind of stepped on your toes, that Atticus didn't know?
I think that in the beginning it was sort of like Sebastian felt like she had received more harassment really for being trans or for being Hispanic than for being trans.
Oh yes, I do, and I still do feel that.
Yeah.
That I have, there were employers that would say terrible things about Hispanic people, or about people that come here from other countries. I've been called an anchor baby, and there is a lot, and there are things that Atticus doesn't. That at the beginning we noticed at the beginning I noticed that he didn't understand. Well, why isn't your mother a citizen? It's like, well, you're not getting it because it's a very difficult process to get your citizenship, and it takes a lot of money, of which a single mother does not have. And it was very, very, raw and frustrating and educational conversations that we had to have.
Yeah, there was a lot that I didn't know about, like the immigration process or what it takes to move to another country. And there were a lot of conversations that were really showcasing my ignorance about what it means to be someone who loves someone who's an immigrant, and then I remember when our former president was elected, and there was the conversation with the Muslim ban and trans people in the military and all this different stuff. And I remember I was talking to my dad about it, who I think is just so wonderful. And he said, he's like, I just don't really think about it that much. And I was like, that is white privilege, because now I had someone in my life who is a daughter of an immigrant, and I had someone who could be affected by it, and I had suddenly had to think about it. And there's my dad who's like, I just don't think about it, and that is white privilege. That's the example of it right there, And it still doesn't really affect me nearly as much, but by association now it does. So.
Got it. Fabulous. This was great. So informative, interesting. I thank you.